Hi, Liyanne here. Welcome to the second episode of Goddess Rising, where I'm going to be sharing my exploration of the goddess that's rising in my own chart. And that goddess is the fire and volcano goddess Pele. So let's get started. Tutu Pele is the fire and volcano goddess of Hawaii. First, I just wanted to cover what I am going to cover in this episode, and that is looking at her story. So when I say her, I am referring to the goddess, whichever goddess that may be. So it's basically the goddess vibration. Her rising in the world generally, it feels, and also her rising in an astrology chart. Her story that's in the stars and in the asteroid discovery chart, finding the mythology and the story of the goddess in the discovery chart of the asteroid that has been named after her. And then on to what her message may be in the chart, because these asteroids are the lesser known and less discussed asteroids. Pele, I haven't heard discussed by any other astrologers, and if she has been, it's not really widely known. My apologies if someone has actually discussed her mythology and her influence in an astrological chart before. If anyone is aware of that, please let me know in the comments, because I'd be really interested to tune into that learning and wisdom. This is going to be my own personal reflections on what the message is from Pele in my chart, and maybe in that journey you can look at the goddess in your chart and follow a similar path to see what the message may be from your goddess rising. Then last but not least, I'm going to look at her song. So there's a light song in every chart. I am the inventor and co-creator. The method that I use was a series of downloads that were channeled through me. I create what I'm now calling a light song. So in the heart of the chart, there is geometry, and I take that geometry and paint it in waves of light. So I'm going to do that for Pele's chart. I just wanted to cover where the goddess is in astrology. So on the left here, I've got her near Venus and the moon. So they're the two principal goddess vibrations in astrology. And then we have the asteroid belt, which the popular theory is that this is a planet that imploded, that used to exist between Mars and Jupiter. And all of that debris, they're quite, varying ranges of sizes of objects, asteroids, and a huge amount of those asteroids are named after goddesses. And this is where the asteroid 2202, which is the Pele asteroid, she lives in this asteroid belt here between Mars and Jupiter. And Ceres has obviously been singled out here in this graphic. We also have goddesses here, what they call trans-Neptunian objects. There is a dwarf planet called Chariklo, who is the wounded healer Chiron's wife, or Chiron rather, whichever way you want to pronounce his name. She's in here, and that's obviously another goddess vibration. And then we have the goddesses that live around the Kuiper belt beyond Pluto. So again, Eris has been singled out here in this graphic. Further out from that is the Oort cloud. And then I've put a constellation of fixed stars here, which are the Pleiades, or in Aotearoa, New Zealand here, it's called Matariki, the Matariki star cluster, and Matariki, the mother star of that cluster, which is also known as Alcyone in the Greek pantheon, and the Seven Sisters, the Pleiades known as the Seven Sisters. And the way I've depicted it here is how it's seen in the Southern Hemisphere as Matariki. So again, covering the basics of the goddess in astrology, we have, like I said, Venus and Moon as the principal goddess vibrations. And I've plotted here Venus and her higher octaves being Neptune and Haumea. So Haumea is another Kuiper belt object, and Haumea is Pele's mother. And Pele's two siblings are the two moons of Haumea. So her youngest sibling, that when I get into the mythology of Pele, I will talk about, both the sisters that are the moons of the dwarf planet Haumea. We have the moon and her two higher octaves, the first being Ceres, as I said before, living in the asteroid belt, the same asteroid belt that Pele lives in. And then we have Sedna as the other higher octave, and she's beyond the Kuiper belt. She's way out. So that's why I've got her sitting between the Kuiper belt and the Oort cloud. So the asteroid Pele is sitting right between, sandwiched between my ascendant, which is my outward persona, and my sun, which is my basic identity. She's quite a big deal for me. She is effectively rising because she is above the horizon. So when you look at a horoscope, the sun moves this way from left to right and then dips below the horizon and is no longer visible. The sun was just coming up when I was born, and Pele was right there with the sun. And in actual fact, she is Kazemi, within 1 degree of the sun when I was born. And this gives her extra potency and power, underlining significance of her for me in my chart. Mercury, by the way, is also here in Aquarius for me. When you have something rising, it is in or near your ascendant, it's in your 12th house. 12th house is about transcendence. It's a very spiritual house. It's also called the house of self-undoing. You have more than one goddess in your chart, so I've just highlighted here Vesta as well, because Vesta is at the anaretic degree, at the 29th degree of Aries, and very close to my the root of my chart. So she's also quite important. And also Lilith, Black Moon Lilith, is 0000 parallel with my Cancer moon. So she's also a really important influence. But I would say of the three, the most significant is Pele, for all the reasons that I just covered. Let's look at the mythology, the story of Pele. This picture on the right is actually a screenshot of the eruption at Mauna Loa, and I could actually see Pele in here, and who knows who this is. But yes, let's read some of her mythology. So she's the fire goddess, ruler of fire, lightning, volcanoes, wind, and creator of all the Hawaiian Islands. Legend tells of her leaving Tahiti to go to Hawaii, and she was exiled by her father. One story has it that it was for seducing her sister's husband, and the other is that it was due to her volcanic temper. Who knows which reason it was for, maybe both. And she also carried her favorite sister, who was still unborn, so she was in an egg, Hi'iaka, and she took her with her to Hawaii, where Hi'iaka became the first Hawaiian-born descendant of the Pele family. Pele got chased by her sister. Legend has it that she slept with this sister's husband, and this sister is the goddess of the ocean. And Pele was traveling around the different islands using her o'o stick, which roused her sister, and her sister was able to track her down due to all of this, digging with her stick and the volcanic activity. Again, legend has it that there were a number of battles, and the final one, Pele was actually killed by her sister and her body torn apart. Pele moved to the island of Hawaii and made her home in Halema'uma'u crater atop the Kilauea volcano. On the right is my artwork I created of Pele's light, which is from her LightSong, which I'll cover later. It is said that her body is the lava and steam that comes from the volcano, and she can also change form, either as a white dog, an old woman, or a beautiful young woman. On the right here is an image of the eruption, and to me I can see Pele walking on the crater. I'm not going to read all of this. You can pause and read it in full. I just wanted to show this depiction of Pele. And here she is with her stick and with the egg that's carrying her unborn sister. And this was chosen as the winner for a competition because it represents the deepest cultural meaning and shows her with a serene and compassionate expression. And there is this emphasis, or equal emphasis, not just as, a destroyer, but as a benevolent, life-giving goddess who creates new land with the lava. I thought that was important because Pele most often is depicted as being, fire and brimstone, I guess you could say, whereas actually she's much more multifaceted than that, just like we all are. Now we're going to move on to her chart, which is basically the discovery chart of the asteroid that was named after her. So the asteroid was discovered on the 7th of September 1972 in the morning. And I'm going to go through some of the aspects here, starting with the sextile to the north node. So this way of looking at the asteroids, I have to give a shout out to the astrologer, the evolutionary astrologer Andrea Michel. Through the Astrology Hub, I learned this method of looking at the asteroids and decided to do my own version for looking at Pele and the asteroid named after Pele. So in the method that Andrea Michel taught us, the North Node is very important. And the North Node, so it just happens that Pele, in her own discovery chart, so this is the chart of the discovery of the asteroid, and this is where the asteroid Pele is in that chart. So Pele, in her own chart, is in a sextile to her North Node in Capricorn. And the North Node is new learning and spiritual growth. It's like where we're headed towards. And Capricorn is initiating material action, and it's all about structure, organization, social accomplishment. And here in the fourth house, it's about establishing foundations. So Pele in her own chart is in a harmonious relationship to establishing foundations and initiating material action. Then she is in a trine, a very strong chart trine. So the thicker the line, the tighter the orb, or the stronger the connection, I guess is another way I can say it for those who aren't conversant with aspects in astrology. So she's in a really strong conversation with the asteroid volcano, and in the sign of Cancer, and in the 10th house. So this to me really speaks to the compassionate side of her, the benevolent side, the life-giving side, because Cancer is all about nurturing and the mother. And also, to me, this illustrates her making her home, right? So Cancer's about the home, making her home in a volcano. It's quite literal, right? Moving on, we then have two quincunxes, one to Hawaii. There's an asteroid called Hawaii, and is tightly conjunct the awakener Uranus. And Pele herself is also referred to as an awakener in the Goddess Oracle by Amy Sophia Marashinsky. And it's really interesting that this quincunx, which is really like a line of inquiry or a line of irritation or agitation, and it goes across to the conjunction between Uranus and Hawaii itself, the land that she's taken up residence in. And it's in the sign of Libra. Isn't that interesting that she's in that agitating relationship with the awakener there with the land of Hawaii, and in the sign that is about beauty, harmony, and balance? I guess you could say that, the lava and the verdant growth that comes from all the nutrients in the soil is beautiful. So next we have the oppositions. As you can see, they're not as tight or strong, but there's three of them. The opposition to her own sun, there's the opposition to her moon, so quite major influences. There's the opposition to Mars that is tightly conjunct her sun, and also pretty tightly conjunct her moon as well. And then you can see that her mother, Haumea, and also Kilauea, which is the specific volcano that she that she resides in. They are all here together in the 12th house and in an earth sign of Virgo. And I'll just point out that also that Pluto, Lord of the Underworld, and associated with, plutonic things, which you can say fire and volcanoes have a kind of plutonic vibration. So he's actually rising in her chart because this is the horizon here, the ascendant here in her chart. Back to these oppositions. She is in opposition and looking directly at her own sun, her own moon, Mars, Haumea, and Kilauea. There's that energy of tension there. I'm using the Astrology for Yourself workbook by Douglas Block and Demetra George, and stringing the sentences together for this. So I am discriminating and function effectively via transcendence. That is the sentence for the Sun in Virgo in the 12th house. And then we have Pele herself in her 6th house in Pisces, which is I commit to a dream or ideal via self-improvement. And what's interesting is this is like a line of polarity or an axis. It's an axis that she would travel between. So traveling between where she is in her own chart and the sun, which is her basic identity. We then have the square to Saturn from the Sun and Mars. And Saturn and Gemini. Saturn is where things become real, where the rubber hits the road. Remember I talked about the North Node being important in this elucidation method. Well, the ruler of where the North Node is Saturn. And Saturn in Gemini. So Saturn in Gemini, I went and looked at the Sabian symbol for Gemini 21 because Saturn is in Gemini 20, just literally a toenail into the 21st degree of Gemini. For a Sabian symbol, this is the 21st degree. And the Sabian symbol is a tumultuous labour demonstration, which in James Burgess's site, he gives it a one-word emphasis, which is outburst. And when I draw the next line, you'll see why I've pointed that out. The next line is the strongest aspect, and that is the square between Pele and Saturn, which has literally nothing in it, It's like 7 minutes. 7 minutes. And this, to me, epitomizes her volcano, the volcano and volcanic activity from Pele herself. She also has in her chart at the bottom here Neptune and Jupiter in her 3rd house. So, this is like the ocean, big ocean, right? Expansive ocean. Where is Pele? She's in Hawaii, and Hawaii is in the middle of the biggest body of water on Earth. With all of these things, this to me tells me of her story, and how she is in the world. And I find it fascinating. This is the second one. So Becky and I had a look at Clytia in the last episode, and that showed Clytia's story, and this is showing Pele's story. And the fact that she's opposite her mum, it's as far away in the chart as you can get. And she is separated from her mum because she took refuge, she got exiled and took refuge in a completely different place. So, to where her family is. And also, if you remember back to the asteroid belt, and then where Haumea is closer to the Kuiper belt. So even in astronomically, Pele is separated from her mum and her two sisters. So the two sisters that are with her mum as the moons of Haumea are the sister that Pele was running away from, and her favourite sister that was the unborn sister in the egg that Pele took with her to Hawaii. I'm inserting this after recording because when I watched the recording back, I realised that I noticed a lot more and wanted to add those notes in as well. So I'm going to start with the Sabian symbols and to say that the Sabian symbols are a symbolic picture, one for each of the 360 degrees of the zodiac wheel. And if you want to know more and you're not already familiar with them, I would highly recommend going to visit the jamesburgess.com site. I'll leave the actual link in the description so you can follow that. So I'm going to start at the sun, and then I'm going to work my way around this way to pick up the notes that I wanted to add in. And the first note is Pele's sun in Virgo at 15 degrees is an orangutan. So 16 Virgo, which for the Sabian symbols you always round up to the next degree because she's 15 degrees in 5 minutes. So she gets rounded up to 16 degrees. 16 degrees Virgo is an orangutan. The headline that James gives for that is the wildness within us and rebalancing of inner primal forces. The next degree, 17 Virgo, is a volcanic eruption. So that's the Sabian symbol for Pele's sun, and orangutan, which is all about the wildness and rebalancing those forces. And then we have her sun is conjunct with Mars, and that really speaks to like a volcanic temperament or volcanic potential in of itself. Never mind everything else in this chart. Then we're going to move to volcano. And what I forgot to mention here is that the 10th house is the sole purpose or the mission in life and the most visible part of the chart. So that chimes with Pele, living in a volcano, and that is in her 10th house of soul mission and soul purpose. Moving on all the way round to Pele herself. So what I wanted to point out here is that Neptune and Jupiter that I mentioned being expansive ocean because Jupiter expands things and Neptune is about the sea. So these are the two rulers of Pisces, of the sign that Pele is in. And they are in a mutable fire sign of Sagittarius. So there's this theme of water and fire. So you've got Neptune, Jupiter in the mutable fire sign of Sagittarius. So mutable being changeable. Then we have where I just came from, volcano, which is all about fire, and a water sign of Cancer. The North Node, I forgot to explain that the North Node is all about the direction that you're heading, or the learning that you have to do and going forward into that direction. So Pele's learning and going forward is into establishing foundations like Earth in the Earth sign of Capricorn. And when you think about Capricorn, you think about the goat, and that Earth is kind of quite challenging Earth, right? Because you think of a mountain goat. I've put these waves here to show that, this is an ocean. So now I'm really looking at the big picture. I'm zooming out and looking at the picture that this is showing us. So we've got the waves, the ocean, the big ocean. Then we've got Uranus, who I forgot to mention is also connected with seismic activity. Of all of the planets, Uranus is definitely, I guess you could say, between Uranus and Pluto, but definitely Uranus, all about shaking things up. And that's why I've put this lightning bolt here. So you've got the ocean, you've got this shaky land, because we've got Hawaii there with Uranus shaking, and then you've got these lines of tension, right? It's almost like a harp. This looks like, right? We think about those lines of tension where you get this being shaken up here, and it's going to activate this volcano. This almost looks to me like either a sailboat or a windsurfer, because you've got water, and then air coming from here, from the land and Uranus. And then obviously this is like seated in the earth. Those are the extra notes that I wanted to add. In my own chart, and looking at this, is now moving into what does this mean in the chart, this goddess rising. So because Pele is so close to my sun, right there, all of the connections from my sun to the other parts of my chart all apply to Pele as well. And the main one that has lessons in it, this is a quincunx, that line of like irritation, agitation, or what I like to think of it of is a line of questioning, a line of inquiry, and also can be a blind spot. And I would say that I relate to this being a blind spot, because the majority of my life I really was, I guess, doubling down on the Aquarius, because I'm Aquarius rising, I'm Aquarius sun, and the Aquarius energy is it's a masculine energy. And my Cancer moon, gosh, you can't get more feminine energy than that, right? The moon, feminine, the moon being the most personal of planets, and in her own sign of Cancer. And yet, that was really like a blind spot for me for a lot of my life. So when I was looking for the messages and the meaning of Pele in the chart, I looked at the Sabian symbols again. The Sabian symbol for my sun at 11 degrees of Aquarius is, during a silent hour, a man receives new inspiration which may change his life. And James Burgess sums this up as trusting the creative urge, following inner guidance and inspiration. And I feel like that's what I'm doing right now by recording this exploration of Pele in my chart. Then the Sabian symbol for Pele's placement, which is a degree later, 12 degrees Aquarius. On a vast staircase stand people of different types graduated upward. And James Burgess's summary of this is, we are not all equal. And to me, when you listen to that, on a vast staircase stand people of different types graduated upward, and we are not all equal, that to me speaks of, a teeter-totter, like a volcano. And then he also adds to that it's about self-examination and improvement. And then to underscore that and underline that, the Sabian symbol for my moon, in that quincunx, is a large diamond in the first stages of the cutting process. That is 10, Cancer in Sabian symbol. And the word for that is training, and undergoing intense training in self-improvement. So self-improvement. Gosh, do you think maybe Pele's message to me is about self-improvement? I think it might be. I also have notes to add for my own chart. And as you can see, there are more things added in here now. After looking at Pele's chart and adding those notes, I thought, let me go and have a look at my chart to see where Hawaii, volcano, and Kilauea are. And you can't make this stuff up, can you? In astrology, you usually have 3 indicators in the chart. For me, I have 3 indicators of having the maverick signature. The first indicator is my sun and rising being in Aquarius. The second is an out of bounds moon. And then the third is my Uranus is the most aspected traditional planet in my astrological makeup. For Pele, we've got a massive underlining here, and more than three actually, indicators. So there's Pele in the heart of the sun. Hawaii is also in the heart of the sun, and then volcano is just beneath the horizon, so just below the surface. Kilauea is on my nodal axis. The red line is the nodal axis opposition, which is a major feature in my chart because of the collection of planets' points at either end. So on the Aries side, I've got Venus at her exalted degree at the last, towards the end of Pisces. It's an out of sign conjunction. And I also have Chiron, who I've not put in here, haven't squeezed him in there, but he's at 001 Aries, so he's on the world point. So those two are together with my north node. And as I said in the other chart, the north node is the direction you're headed and where your learning is. So yes, that is Venus and Chiron there for me with the North Node, and now with Kilauea. On top of that, I've actually drawn in Pele's ascendant and descendant line. So my North Node, the North Node end of my nodal axis, is conjunct her descendant line. So the descendant is, so the ascendant is self, and the descendant is others, external. And that is quite a close. I mean, you can hardly even see the line because it's pretty close. My nodal axis is at 3 degrees 2, and the descendant ascendant axis for Pele is 4 degrees 17, so just over a degree. Then at the other end, on the Libra end, the south node end for me and the ascendant end for Pele, I have Uranus there, very close to the ascendant degree for Pele, 30 minutes in it. Uranus is also conjunct Jupiter in my natal chart, and both of them conjunct with the south node. That, like I said, main feature in my chart is being overlaid, underlaid, whichever way you want, round you want it, with Pele's ascendant, descendant line, and also Kilauea on one end of it. And then last but not least is this is Pele's volcano in Cancer, and at 20 degrees 7 minutes, my volcano is in Aquarius, 19 degrees 29 minutes, which means that they also have a quincunx between them. So a line of inquiry, questioning, irritation or agitation, whichever way you want to cut it. And clearly, definitely a blind spot, because I didn't even know until right now. Yes, so those are the notes I wanted to add for my own chart. If there are any astrologers watching this that have some thoughts on what this all might mean, I am all ears. This for me just pretty much confirms that Pele is an even bigger deal in my astrological makeup than I thought she was. And Hawaii also, because Hawaii is very closely conjunct to my sun also, even closer than Pele herself is. Okay, that's it for those extra notes. Let's get on with the recording as it was recorded. I'm going to share a bit about my life and about the self-improvement theme as part of this exploration. This is me in my grandma's lap, and my sister is stood there with her hand on my grandma's shoulder. This is immediately after my mother left my father and left me and my sister with our father. I was only just one, and my sister is 13 months older than me. My father is Samoan, my mother is English, and they both emigrated far away from their homes of birth, my mum from England and my dad from Samoa. I grew up the majority of my childhood not knowing my mother. Gee, does that sound a bit like Pele? Being separated from family. Also, this is like with most people, there's a wound of some kind. This is my major wound. The wound of abandonment, the wound of rejection from, the person who birthed me, who carried me for 9 months and then left. And, I'm not going to go into the whole story, but there's been a huge amount of work I've had to do to understand, to process, to release a lot of anger. And this is what I'm going to go on to here. Here are pictures of me with, this is the expression on my face when I'm angry or, irritated. right? This is just irritated. And the picture down the bottom here is taken in Paris, and I was with my partner. We'd gone on a trip to Paris, and I was hacked off, and my patience had run out. I had sore feet. I was hungry, and he was there taking photos, and this is me shooting a glance at him. And as he described it, yes, you basically shot me a look, and it's like all the birds stopped singing in the trees. So there's that volcanic, almost eruptive potential. And I certainly recognize that. I'm now 56, so I can count on one hand the amount of times I've lost my temper, and I can remember, actually, it's only 3 occasions. I can remember all 3 occasions, and all 3 occasions I actually scared myself with, the strength of that anger. So slow to anger, slow to erupt. I'm sharing where I can recognize this influence in my outward persona and also my basic identity. I I I recognize that eruptive potential and also the wounding. Yeah. So this are just my thoughts that, connecting to the goddess within, regardless of your gender, is to recognize your own creatrix potential. Our true self is a gift to the world, and our life is a story of how we got there. So, Pele's message is to change the word reactive into creative. Oh, beg your pardon, I'm aging myself. I'm not 56 yet, I'm 55 still. Okay, this was taken this year at my birthday. So this is a very different expression to this one. And that's because of all the work I've had to do to actually shift from being reactive in my life to then taking charge and being creative. And I love the fact that this is Pele's message. Reactive turns into creative. And this is my creative understanding, is I am a light worker. I create light songs from the heart of the astrology chart. And being a light worker, there is no way that you cannot also be a shadow walker, walking your own shadow, understanding your own shadow, embracing your own shadow, because you can't have light without dark or dark without light, the yin and the yang. And it's about shining a light on that dark so you recognize it, you accept it, you embrace it. Because only in doing that, like I have tried to do with my own, the shadow of anger and the shadow of escaping. Pele escaped. And for me, my escape was a very Neptunian, so the Neptune influence in my chart, alcohol. Alcohol, sex. I used as escape, and trying to get validation and value through something other than my own creativity. You can't get to the light without walking through shadow. It's no wonder that The Shawshank Redemption is my favourite film, bar none, And I feel like I am like that Andy Dufresne character. For those of you who know the film, he literally crawls through shit to get out the other side and to his boat by the sea. That's me. That's me. So now I'm going to share with you Pele's LightSong. These aspects in her chart I have painted in waves of light using the colours of the zodiac. This is her own vibration in her own chart. We have as above, so below, as within, so without. And that turns into a light song. And this is the monad, so this is the singular. And then we have God wanting to, or source energy, whatever you want to call it, wanting to know itself. So had to divide itself in order to know itself. And that's what the Vesica Pisces is. So here is the Vesica Pisces of Pele's LightSong. I created an artwork which I'll leave a link to for those of you who may be interested. It comes as an A2 print if you have a resonance with Pele, and also if you're interested in discovering your own goddess rising or the significant goddess for you. I'm open to doing a session with you to look at exactly that, and also do a discovery, just like I've done a discovery of Pele's vibration in her own chart. I would do exactly the same kind of discovery for whichever goddess is rising in your chart. Again, I'll leave details for that in the description. I just wanted to leave this session with this great quote from Rumi. Don't be satisfied with stories, how things have gone with others. Unfold your own myth.